Hey everyone, welcome to the Nostalgia Effect, the podcast where we examine movies from our childhood through the lens of adulthood. As always, I'm Amy. We got Johnny back today.
He is back. Twist.
I have risen.
He was quote unquote sick.
I was.
For an entire week.
I was sick in the head, guys. No, I was actually dying.
He was actually, he came in one day and we had to send him home.
Yes.
Yeah,
but I am back, and I am happy to be back. I'm also, glad that you guys were carrying the torch without me.
Yeah.
Made me feel very good.
Yeah.
Really necessary to the podcast.
Yeah. Really showed me.
Yeah, it really showed you to get sick.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah.
And we also got Joe.
Yeah, I'm here too, everybody. Hey.
But today we are talking about Last Action Hero.
Hell yeah.
Before we get started on that, though, it's Talking Trailers time, and we're going to continue our series of talking about 3 influential TV shows, and today we're going to talk about Johnny's.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm talking. It's me now. Oh, yes.
Speak, boy, speak.
Yeah, my 3, Simpsons, number 1. I think anybody who has a conversation with me just once will know that it's
Usually
Simpsons.
people just have
that was
one
the first
conversation
thing
with
I
you.
learned about you when I started working here.
Because if you, it's something that I bring up almost every day. Something of The Simpsons, and I love, obviously since it's such a long running series, it's Simpsons from like seasons 1 through I'll give it to season 11 as solid.
Yeah.
It starts to get shaky towards later after that, but those seasons are just amazing. Just amazing writing. It's just so funny. So I always quote that. There's always a situation in any given day where I can quote Simpsons and have it just work in the conversation. So that's definitely my number 1. Number 2 would be Late Night with Conan O'Brien.
Mm-hmm.
That's a show that I absolutely love. It's funny because actually growing up in where I grew up, it was on the foothills of the mountains, and we didn't have cable, so we had the old school rabbit ears.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get certain channels. Certain channels were really fuzzy to get, and NBC I could never get it.
Mm-hmm.
It just was impossible.
Yeah.
So most of the time, the only time that I could watch Late Night with Conan O'Brien was on Fridays, because I wasn't allowed to stay up that late. The show would come on at 12:30 or some shit.
Oh yeah. Because it was the late
Yeah,
show.
it was the show after the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
And so the only times I could watch it was on Fridays. And I usually had to watch it standing up because I had to I had to act as the conductor of electricity, because if I let go of the rabbit ear, the channel would just go away.
Yeah, I remember having to do that. There was a TV, if my dad was watching a baseball game up in the living room, we had this tiny little travel TV.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to watch anything on it, you had to hold the rabbit ears up to the basement window.
Yeah.
And it's in this corner, and it's filled with spiders. And you had to crane your neck to be able to watch.
You had to earn that show.
Yeah.
So I had to earn Conan O'Brien Late Night, but it's one of my favorite things ever. It's still to this day amazing comedy idol.
Mm-hmm.
Which is funny because he was also a writer on
The
early
Simpsons,
days of
right?
The Simpsons.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
his comedy's been your thing for
a while now. And it's my favorite. It's so good, and all the bits on there. That's my type of humor.
Yeah.
Is just this completely absurdist, just wackiness. And then third one is Bugs Bunny cartoons, Looney Tunes.
Really?
Yeah. To this day, I love Looney Tunes. Sometimes I just get really high and just watch Looney Tunes, and it's the best. And these cartoons are fucking 50, 60 years old, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they're still just great. I remember I would always go back in the day. I hate saying back in the day, but back in the day.
Back in my day.
There was a supermarket, and they had a video rental section, And so we would go to the supermarket, and I would get a movie. My mom would let me get a movie, and it was usually a collection of Bugs Bunny cartoons.
Yeah.
And so I would just rent these VHS tapes of just a compilation of Looney Tunes cartoons.
Yeah.
And they were my favorite. I had a Bugs Bunny stuffed doll, And my stocking, I had a stocking for Christmas, and it was a Bugs Bunny stocking.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I to this day, like I still love Bugs Bunny. Like, and they're classic. Like,
Yeah.
I was watching the really famous one where it's
The barbershop?
the barbershop one.
Yeah.
Still
It's so
hilarious.
good.
It's like when Bugs Bunny gets up on Elmer Fudd's head, and he's like
Yeah.
massaging it, and the music's
with his
it's
feet. Yeah.
good. It's so
Yeah.
funny. Like how like it's just classic, you know.
Yeah.
And the other bit, the opera one, with it's Elmer
Oh, where
Fudd and Bugs
he
Bunny.
has like the braids
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the
that
Viking
one.
helmet.
Yeah.
So good. Like the music in it is great. Like those Warner Brother cartoons are just so good, and I love them because, and this also goes to, it also speaks to like who I am as a person.
Mm-hmm.
I love them because all the Looney Tunes are assholes.
Yeah.
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 Whereas
Bugs Bunny is like chief asshole.
yeah, but he's like cool, and he's just like, I don't know. I relate a lot to Bugs Bunny. I still want to be Bugs
Yeah,
Bunny.
you are the chief asshole.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and he causes mischief. He's like a.
He's like a
Yeah.
little rascal guy, you know. He's just, but he's like, I mean, even his catchphrase, like, "Ah, what's up, Doc?" Like,
Yeah.
that's cool. You're just like, okay. As a character, you can understand that he's like cool. Whereas like the Disney characters, like Mickey Mouse and like Goofy
They're
and
very,
Donald,
like,
they're not cool.
family friendly.
It's very much
squeaky
yeah,
clean.
it's squeaky clean. It's very, and I was never really into that. I never really got big into any of the Disney characters like that.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, Looney Tunes, they were funny because they were just assholes
Yeah.
to each other and to everybody, and it's great. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, Looney Tunes had, I mean, even though it was a little there's some racistness in Speedy Gonzales.
Yeah.
Is one of the first depictions of like Mexican characters in popular things that I was aware of.
Yeah.
You know, where Mexican characters in American popular culture.
Did Speedy Gonzales come out before or after the Three Caballeros?
I'm pretty sure. Well, pretty sure after, because Three Caballeros was like the 40s.
I have no idea.
I think the Three Caballeros came out during World War II because that's when Disney was making all of those not propaganda movies, but like wartime.
They were making propaganda movies.
Like the wartime movies where like Donald Duck is riding like a nuclear bomb.
40s, 1944.
Yeah.
And that was actually Three Caballeros was a favorite of my grandpa and I. Like we would watch that together. But it's funny that you would mention about Speedy Gonzales because he also. I was not aware of necessarily the racism at the time. It was just more like, hey, I know those words.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
Like it's I don't like.
Yeah, it was
cool.
familiar. It was a
Yeah.
it was a thing that, because I mean, a lot of growing up in and immigrant household, you don't see your life reflected in the culture. So in popular culture, and now it's different. Obviously there's sense, diversity and inclusion in representation.
Yeah.
In media is kind of taken
A front seat.
In the last, like,
front seat,
20
yeah, in
years
the
or
last like
so.
20 years or
Yeah.
so. But back then, it definitely was not, and so that was like one of the first things. Like, oh, I know that. Like that setting is familiar.
Because I don't think in Three Caballeros they ever talked in Spanish. It was always English.
No,
Was
Pancho
it-
and I'm blanking on the other one's name. They spoke Spanish.
Because I never I think
don't.
I maybe watched it when I was young, but I never watched the full thing or have very good memories of it. I just think they were like on a Melody Time VHS tape that I had, and that's about as much as I saw of Three Caballeros.
Right. I really don't have a lot of memories of that movie either.
But I also think that speaks a lot to how the two of us grew up very differently.
Oh, yeah.
Like your top three is like just heavy hitting like comedy type things, and then my three are like more sitcom-y type things.
Yeah.
And it like in you related, like you went more towards the Looney Tunes, where I grew up with a lot of like the squeaky clean Disney stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's funny because I grew up with Looney Tunes and Disney, like
Yeah.
almost in equal measure.
Nice.
And yeah, I had the best of both worlds. Just to go to your question earlier, Amy, Speedy Gonzales apparently appeared first in 1953.
So he was very much around the similar timeline to Caballeros.
Yeah, but yeah, I always liked him because it felt like kind of like my grandpa wore big hats, not sombreros, but he wore a big hat when he was out gardening and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you know what else? I think he's, if anything else, he's not a racial stereotype only because he moves super fast.
Well, no, it's not, he's not the racial stereotype. There are characters around him.
Yes.
That, like, he's got like a cousin. I forget his name, but he's like very much the the stereotypical like lazy Mexican.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
And they always pictured somebody like sombrero with
Yeah.
like sitting on the ground, like legs drawn up to the chest, like that and everything.
Yeah.
Which I've every time I ever went to Mexico, I didn't see that.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's just, it was popular imagery at the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was still just a first seeing my culture in the American pop culture
Yeah.
thing. And I was like, oh, this, it was, I love Speedy Gonzales cartoons, and Bugs Bunny cartoons were especially my favorite. I mean, Roadrunner. I mean,
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
these, all of these, like,
Mm-hmm.
Daffy Duck, like,
Mm-hmm.
Daffy Duck was probably out of all of them, Daffy Duck, I think, might be the most asshole-ish one. I would say Bugs Bunny's an asshole,
Yeah.
but he's at least, like, a charming asshole.
Yeah.
Whereas Daffy Duck is just a fucking asshole.
Oh yeah, totally.
Well, and that's why it's so great in Who Framed Roger Rabbit when you see,
we see
Donald and Daffy and dueling pianos,
Yeah.
and they never
Yeah.
get through the song because they're both so antagonistic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, Donald and Daffy are very, like, in their respective groups of animation, they are definitely very similar characters. And I wonder if they pulled the characteristics from one or the other when making
Oh,
the
making,
other.
yeah, that's true. I don't know which one came first.
I feel like
I think
Daffy probably
probably-
came first because
I would think
they didn't start
Donald.
making like Mickey and Friends. I don't think he was with like all of the Steamboat Willie stuff.
All right, so Donald Duck, first appearance 1934.
Okay.
Daffy Duck, first appearance 1937.
Very close.
Yeah, they were very close together. So I wonder if they like saw Daffy or they saw Donald and were like, we should get on that.
Yeah.
We should make an
I mean,
asshole
it's
duck.
two ducks, both assholes, both with speech impediments.
Yeah.
One of them wears a shirt though.
Well, yeah. So Donald was a sailor, and they actually there's been a lot of stuff online. Reading between the lines of Donald's character, you realize that he's got like PTSD from having served in the Navy because he's a sailor.
Yeah.
Well, and
He's
he was
wearing
in
a
all of
sailor
those
shirt.
like the World War II cartoons also. Yeah.
It's funny because there's also one that I vividly remember, a Daffy Duck, Warner Brothers cartoon, Looney Tunes, Daffy Duck, and he is very much in World War II, and it's
Yeah.
like at the very end of it, the very end of this cartoon, it's like Hitler, and he's giving a speech, and he just goes up and smacks Hitler,
Yeah.
and he starts crying like a baby,
Yeah.
and it's hilarious. And the funny thing about the whole thing is that I think I've only ever seen that cartoon in Spanish.
Really?
Yeah, because we
Oh,
used
yeah,
to
we
have.
talked about this. Yeah.
Well, there's a bunch of like animated movies that I've only ever seen like in Spanish.
Oh yeah.
But that particular cartoon, I just remember we always had like a VHS tape of Looney Tunes cartoons, and this one was in Spanish, and that cartoon was in Spanish. So it was really weird. Like as a kid, I didn't get it because it's just like it's a very it's basically it's Daffy Duck versus like a very like militaristic like hawk, animated hawk or whatever. And it's all in Spanish, and I didn't get the imagery or anything. I don't, and as an adult looking back, I'm like, oh, that's weird that it's all in Spanish, but it's like this American like propaganda thing. It's
yeah.
like,
Yeah, like they would even decide to like let's translate this one.
Yeah.
Specifically. I mean, there's a whole. I don't know if it's ever got like a proper release, but there's a whole like Tunes at War thing, and and there's like Bugs Bunny taking on an entire platoon of Japanese soldiers. It's called Bugs Nips the Nips, which is super racist.
I think I've seen clips of that,
Oh,
like
yeah.
maybe used in a video essay on YouTube or something.
Yeah, there's like a bit where he's got like a bomb, and he goes, "Here, hold this, monkey face," and it's just like, and you watch it, and you're like, "Oh
Yeah.
shit."
But back then they were like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Anyway,
so those are my three. I think when I have to think, I think those three, you get a sense of like.
Did you ever hear the story about Mel Blanc after being in a car accident? I think it was a car accident. He was in a coma for a long time, and then they kept trying to talk to him, and nothing. And then one day, I think that like one of his doctors, and this is I'm not entirely
I do
sure
know
if
the
this is
story.
true.
Yeah.
And he dresses him as Bugs, and then he responds back in Bugs' voice,
Yeah.
and then like came to.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he like was like in character.
Yeah,
Well, 'cause he did
coma.
most of the voices.
Yeah.
I mean, he did. Yeah, he's the man of like 1,000 voices or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
100 voices.
Okay. As much as I love talking about cartoons,
Joe?
I want to talk about this movie.
Yeah. Intro us.
Okay. So Arnold Schwarzenegger as Arnold Schwarzenegger in a movie about Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's right. It is Last Action Hero, the 1993. I'm pretty sure dud. I don't think it did especially well. I think it did okay.
That's interesting.
I seem to also recall that it got fairly bad reviews when it came out. It is a all-time favorite of mine. I have loved this film since the day my grandma took me to see it in theaters.
You saw it in theaters.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's like a PG-13 movie.
Yeah.
And you were like rather.
I would have been.
We were 3. Yeah.
I would have been 8.
Yeah. Jesus.
Maybe, or actually maybe younger, depending on when it came out.
The 3rd of June or 18th of June.
Yeah. So I was almost gonna be 8.
Wow.
Yeah. My grandma was a sucker. She would take me to anything I wanted to go
cool
see.
Grandma.
I had a great grandma. She loved movies.
You had a great grandma. Your great grandma.
Yeah,
That's a Joe joke for you.
That is a Joe joke.
That was a Joe joke.
I just wanted you to taste it.
Joke with like 3 O's in the middle there.
No, but she loved movies, and I would go spend summers with her, and so we would just go see everything that came out.
That's cool.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
and she took me to anything that I wanted to see. So yeah, this was my suggestion. You two had not seen the film.
I had never.
Right?
I think I had maybe heard of it, like just like briefly in the back of my mind. It like sparked something.
Yeah.
But I knew nothing about this, and
Not even the premise or anything.
No, I looked it up to look at the release date and how long it was earlier today, and all I saw was Arnold Schwarzenegger on the cover, and I was like, okay, I don't want to look at anything else.
Yeah.
I don't want to know anything about this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I knew anything about this movie up until like maybe like 2 or 3 years ago.
Oh wow.
Like it wasn't even
Did
anything.
it just come up in conversation or something?
Yeah, so it came up, I think we were talking about like action movies
Yeah.
or like something, and somebody had mentioned Last Action Hero, and I like was aware of the title, like the name of the movie. I know that was, I was like, I've heard that before, but I didn't know it was like a Schwarzenegger movie. I didn't know I knew nothing about it until very, very recently. I mean, I knew, I know what the plot is now because I, talking with people about like what it's about. But yeah, as a kid, I had no idea.
I have
that this
zero
even
idea
existed.
of what this is going into it.
It's so funny because Sarah had also maybe had heard of it, certainly hadn't seen it, didn't know what it was about. And it's crazy because the pedigree on this film, Schwarzenegger, one of the biggest action stars, I think, of recent time, maybe ever.
Yeah. Especially in that era, right?
Especially in that
this
era.
This is what, 93?
Just after Terminator 2.
Just after Terminator 2, yeah.
And, I mean, directed by John McTiernan, who did Predator and Die Hard and Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Wow.
And also Crimson Tide. It was written by Shane Black, who did Predator and Lethal Weapon.
He did the new Predator movie, too.
Well, let's not talk about that. Don't hold that against him. He's given us more than he's taken away.
That's true.
And story was by Zach Penn, who's been doing all kinds of stuff, X-Men and Avengers, and I think this new X-Men movie coming out, Dark Phoenix, he wrote it, I think, and it's his directorial debut.
I am fact checking you on that.
Please do. But
he did Ready Player One.
Yeah, he's done a ton of stuff.
Writer credits.
I mean, we get that.
I don't think he did Dark Phoenix.
Well, I know that he's directed it.
No.
You sure?
Zach Penn.
Yeah.
His directorial credits are Atari Game Over, documentary The Grand, and Incident at Loch Ness.
Incident at Loch Ness is great. That's weird.
And his last writing credit is for Ready Player One.
But yeah, no.
Simon Kinberg. He's the other. He's somebody else who does a lot of writing. That's. I got him confused. He's done a ton of stuff. So the movie has serious pedigree.
Yeah.
And then and the other thing I remember, like even from when I was little, it was the first time I ever saw Charles dance in anything, and he steals pretty much every scene. Like he made a big impression on me when I was little. As a fantastic villain.
It's funny because. I mean, what else is Charles? The only thing I know Charles Dance from is Game of Thrones.
Well, so that's the funny thing is I remember when I was little, I saw this movie and I was like, oh man, this guy's so good. And I kept waiting to see him in anything else.
Yeah.
And nothing. Until Game of Thrones. And I was like, oh shit. This is the only other thing I know him from is Last
Yeah,
Action Hero.
yeah.
I don't know if he did a lot of like British television or maybe
Interesting,
stage.
But he's
stuff.
great in Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
really,
I
really
remember
good.
because I read the books, and so when he got onto the show, and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh yeah, he would be a really good Tywin Lannister,
Yeah.
you know. And then the other thing that I remember this film for is it's the first movie that I was ever aware of Ian McKellen. And he's got a tiny, tiny little role, but he really stands out. And then I wouldn't see him again, I think, until probably the first X-Men.
Yeah.
Just so you guys know, Charles Dance is going to be in the new Godzilla movie, as well as the new Kingsman movie. Kingsman movie.
Oh man, I love Kingsman.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't like the second one as much.
I don't like it as much,
Yeah,
but I still
like
really
the
like
first
it.
one. Yeah.
It's okay.
It's a good movie. Anyway, well, should we just watch this movie?
Yeah, let's just watch the movie.
All right.
Do it.
And now, our feature presentation.
And we're back.
Okay, what did you guys think?
Fucking great.
Right?
I love this movie.
It's so
Okay.
good.
I legit.
So-
I really liked it.
One of the things that I didn't want, because I didn't want to spoil anything, is you were just talking the other day about how much you like the movie The Final Girls, and I feel like that movie owes this movie a debt in terms of being the characters pulled into a movie.
But also.
Wait, when was I talking about that?
Just the other day.
The Final Girls? The movie? Mm-hmm. No.
No,
No, I was
we were
talking about a podcast where they were
about
talking about Final Girls
Final
in
Girls
horror movies.
as the.
Oh.
'Cause I have no idea what movie you're talking about.
There was a pretty popular movie a
Yeah.
couple years back called The Final Girls.
Yeah.
And it was basically like this,
But horror film.
But a horror film, like and it's kind of like a.
Yeah. And I haven't seen it, but I really, really want to. I just haven't got around to it yet.
I heard it was good.
Yeah, I heard it was good too.
But anyways, this movie.
Yeah. It's got.
It's fucking good. Like
Right?
it was so good that I was like, I actually I kind of just forgot that Shane Black wrote it.
Yeah, but it's
'Cause I
got
was-
all of the Shane Black
it
stuff.
does,
It's got
and I was
Seaside
like-
Mansion, Attack by Helicopter. Some of it takes place at Christmas.
I was just like, this is a really well put together movie.
Yeah.
I was like, how did like this good of a movie pass me by for so long?
Well, I think the thing is it wasn't well received. I just looked it up here, and according to like what now movie ratings would be, it got a 36% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Amy, did you like it?
So I have some conflicting feelings about this movie.
Interesting. Let's hear them.
Like, you both know I love meta humor.
Yes.
I just love like when things make fun of themselves.
Yeah,
And I love
you make
that.
fun of yourself all the time.
But I feel like my feelings about this are very similar to Johnny's feelings about The Goonies. I can see why it is a really great film, and I enjoyed myself while watching it, but it's not a movie I probably would ever watch again.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting. Although, I mean, I can see that.
got-
This is very much, I mean, it's centered around a young boy, right,
Yeah.
in action movies. And you're not a particularly
I
big
like action
action
movies.
fan.
She's not much of a young boy though.
Yeah.
That's true.
I like action movies. Like, I loved when I saw John Wick the other day. I
Yeah.
loved John Wick.
Yeah, but this is like more of, see, the thing I really liked about it, it was a really good just deconstruction of action movie tropes.
Yeah.
But specifically really bad ones,
But
like
yeah,
the late
specifically-
80s,
No, no, no.
early 90s
Yeah, yeah.
action
See,
films.
yeah, like that's what I appreciated a lot
And
about
just-
this is that it like broke those down, and like I appreciate that as a critic and studier of film and filmmaking.
Yeah.
I really
A
appreciated
film
that.
scholar.
I am a film scholar. I have a minor in film studies.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm surprised. So what was it about it that didn't work for
I
you?
don't know.
Is it because
There was just like about an hour and 20 minutes into this, I noticed myself checking my phone, checking like the time, like seeing how much time was left in the movie.
Was it because it's one of those things where it's a smart movie, but it's making a lot of like stupid jokes. But I mean, like for
Stupid-
instance,
well, yeah,
I
but
mean,
it's-
because it's not a stupid movie, but it's making fun of the stupid movies
Yeah.
by reveling in that, like the whole like you killed his favorite second cousin, you know, and it's like they keep bringing that up.
Well,
but
see,
just-
there's like all that stuff. It's like, yes, I should like with my taste in movies and my like humor, that is stuff I would love, and I liked that stuff. But at the same time, I was just like, I'm really bored.
Was it because essentially
Interesting.
the first Almost 2/3 of the movie is dealing with the movie plot in the movie universe
movie,
that
yeah.
ultimately doesn't really matter. It's like the story really comes together once they leave the movie, and maybe that's what it was.
Yeah.
Do you think that's why?
It should probably. I think that it just didn't connect.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a note that says, I wasn't bored, but I was bored. And I was engaged in the story, in action. It was funny, fun, and meta, everything I like. But there's just something, I can't put my finger on what exactly it is. I got bored.
See, and it's funny because I don't remember what people didn't like about it. I think they were just like, this is a big, loud, stupid action movie without, and maybe some reviewers felt bored, like it was long. I mean, and I looked it up here
Like
too,
it was
just
tedious.
That could, because maybe they did some tropes a couple times over. They did not the same joke over and over, but it was just like, oh, you're making fun of taglines, and you keep making fun of just random ass taglines all the time. I'm like, okay, I got it the first 3 times you did it. You don't have to do it 6 more.
Yeah. Because this movie's budget was $85 million, which was a lot back then.
Oh yeah, that's a
huge
lot.
movie. And the box office, according to this, is 137.3. So that's not even.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
that's
not doing
barely.
well.
That just breaks
Barely
even a
breaking
little
even.
bit,
Yeah.
especially for a movie like this.
Yeah.
It's
so good.
But there was a line that they do say that I felt compelled to write it down, because I was like, and it kind of sums up how I feel about this movie.
Yeah.
It's, you can't go through life nitpicking every little thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, like I understand. I really enjoyed this movie, but I can't, like, and there's nothing I can really nitpick about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like there was something about it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because for me, having grown up with this film, I identified so much with Danny Madigan. You know, single mom, loves movies more than he likes real life. And like even when he's in school and they're watching the Laurence Olivier Hamlet, you know, and he's like imagining the action movie version of it. That I did that. I remember doing that in school and being like, "Oh, this movie's boring," and then imagining the action version of it, you know. And so I always kind of felt like it was me, you know. It was, and I connected so much with the movie, I think, because of that. And then as I've gotten older, obviously I still have all of those connections, but then I appreciate how the movie works as a movie, but as a critique on those movies. And I love, I mean, everything about it. That opening scene with the Ripper on the rooftop. Which it's really funny, by the way, to see that as a resident of Los Angeles now and being like, oh, that's Culver, that's the Flatiron Building in Culver City. That's like a hotel. And then like just down the street is the Sony Building, which was the interior of the police headquarters. And I remember when I first moved here and went into the Sony Building, and I was like, I've seen this before, and then like when I saw it, and then I like when I bought the movie on Blu-ray some years later, and I was like, oh, I know I'd seen it before.
Speaking of that, you guys both know I haven't seen T2 yet.
Right.
Still.
Yeah.
But the scene where they dive off the bridge into the LA River, the like basin area.
Oh yeah.
I was like, this is like the motorcycle scene in T2 that everybody has seen, because it's just like the clip that they show for Terminator 2.
It's a fucking awesome scene, too.
Yeah.
But so anyway, but the way that scene moves, it's just pretty much all steady cam, and how we get introduced to Jack Slater and that really kick-ass Michael Kamen score that, you know, boom, boom, which is like heavy guitars.
I did really love his introduction when he's like walking on the cars.
Yeah,
then he gets down and the lady's like, "This is the governor," and he like punches him in the face.
This
and
is
he's
the
like,
lieutenant governor. Call me when the governor gets here.
And I was like, "You're the governor."
Yeah. Well, and then he walks up and there's that guy and he's like, you know, stop him. And then he turns around and he goes, "You want to have a farm? Here's a couple of acres." And he like kicks him in the nuts and he goes flying and he catches his walkie-talkie and he says something about like so and so's down and just like crunches it with his hand. Yeah. And then when he gets to the top of the roof and the guy's like, you know, lose the piece, and then he like starts taking out all of the weapons, you know.
That's good.
And Tom Noonan is so good as the Ripper.
Yeah, which funnily enough, the first time that they showed the Ripper, I was like, why does he feel like Michael Rooker? I was like, for some reason, I was like, it's Michael Rooker.
That's interesting. I could see that.
I kind of because they kind of thought the same thing. Kind of like, especially with
the eyes. It's like the eyes and the cheekbones.
The way they did the makeup, it was like when he's Yondu. It's just like he just had like, but
it was the voice was the thing that I was like, oh, that's not his voice.
Yeah, that's what I was like. Why does he looks like Michael Rooker?
Well, you see, it's so funny because Tom Noonan, for me, I know him from Manhunter, of course. He's the Tooth Fairy in that. And then he's also the Frankenstein's creature in Monster Squad.
He's in RoboCop 2.
He's in RoboCop 2. He's one of the main bad guys. He's kind of a character actor, and he's very. He always does a really good job. But then I've seen interviews with him, and I think he's probably an asshole in real life because he just comes across as an asshole.
Yeah, his only line I noticed outside of his
when he's actually Tom
outside
Noonan.
of the Ripper character, he's just like, huh?
Yeah, yeah. But he is chewing up the scenery as the Ripper.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he's so good. But I love the idea that scene spawned of like, when he says, sure, push your kid off a building, give you nightmares for the rest of your life. Like, what does it matter?
That's the turn when they get out of the movie and the movie plot is over and it's now...
And you're at his sad, empty apartment.
It's like an existential... Well, it just becomes like an existential thing when he's like, oh, I'm a fictional character. Like, how would you feel if you just found out your entire life was made up?
Yeah.
You know? It got really like... I was like, oh shit, this is getting kind of deep.
And
like,
it's sad.
And it is sad because you're just like, oh fuck, like, yeah, he's right. Like, his whole thing, like, his whole world is this made up thing, and he didn't, and he's like, I just found out, like, I am,
and it's not even that it's that his whole world is made up, but then the way he's been, even as a made up character living in that world, it's been sad. The fact that he hires somebody to call to pretend to be his wife, and that his apartment is just empty, that there's nothing there. Except for his clothes and a guy in the closet, and like that he has nothing but
really
this job.
Context.
Yeah, no, it does sound weird. But he's got nothing but this job, and he realizes even that's nothing. You know,
my favorite bit. Well, two of my favorite bits. My favorite line is when it's Arnold Schwarzenegger, the actor, and he's talking, and he's like, in this movie we only kill like 50 people, whereas
143.
Like that bit is so
I do
funny.
have the full body count for this movie though.
And then, and it's great too because then she's like, Maria Shriver's like, don't plug the restaurant. I hate when you play. It's so tacky. And then he starts talking. He's like,
like,
with the plan of Hollywood, we have
and
to
then you see Maria Shriver come up and just like pull him away.
Yeah, she's like, you said you weren't gonna do it. It's so tacky. He's like, but what?
They brought it up. Yeah, I just love that bit where he's just like, we try to kill less people in this one.
Yeah.
It's so good. And then my second favorite bit is, of course, Officer Whiskers.
Yes.
Like,
Danny
that shit
DeVito.
is so
like the
funny.
first time they show him, I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And then you like actually hear him talking. And I'm like, oh, holy fuck, it's Danny DeVito. Oh.
Yeah. And then there's
that.
There's like that, and then there's the black and white digitization of Humphrey Bogart,
Yes.
and they actually like call that out. And the fact that when they're going into the police station, you see Sharon Stone, who co-starred with Schwarzenegger in Total Recall, and you see Robert Patrick, who was the T-1000 in Terminator 2, and then Danny DeVito, who co-starred with him in Twins. Like there's all of these people that are
meta commentary.
Yeah.
Of like, yeah.
And then like the Stallone as the Terminator.
Is so good.
What is the body count?
83.
Interesting.
Nice.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Does that include when they blew up his ex-wife's house, though? I don't know if
I'm sure it does. I would think that it does.
Because I don't know if
because nobody got
full body
killed
count.
in the explosion. All of the henchmen that he killed before the eye exploded, and we see some of those cops later. No, but we see one of those cops later. I think like it's one of those movie stupid action movie
the
things
extras
that just
where
nobody
they
explodes.
you just it's an extra that just comes back.
Yeah. But
yeah, no, I love the when you first introduce him, where he's like, "Oh no, this is a movie." He's like, "Oh, now I know it's a movie." You got a cartoon cat. He's like, "What are you talking about? It's Officer Whiskers." He's like, "One of our best men."
Yeah, he's like he's supposed to be back.
Yeah, he's supposed to be back. He'll be here tomorrow.
Yeah, he'll come. And then like the police captain, which the yelling. I don't know if you caught like it was years and years and years before I started really listening to what he says. And there's a lot of nonsense and like no words in there. But then there's a bit where I shit you not, he says, "I have the Chamber of Commerce doing cartwheels in my cocoa factory." And then also at one point when he's really yelling and all you can catch is like snippets credits.
Yeah,
it's
and
after
the
they're
steam's
all
coming out.
exploded. Yeah, and the steam's coming out of his ears. He says something about California raisins and Diary of Anne Frank.
I did catch the diary.
I may have to rewatch
Yeah.
just for
And
those little bits.
I was like, that's
Yeah.
pretty fucking
But
good.
to piggyback off of that, at one point Danny produces a piece of paper with the word presumably fuck in some variation.
Oh, yeah.
Written on it, and
Yeah.
asks Slater to say it. He refuses.
Yeah.
But because this is a PG-13 movie.
Yep.
But Lieutenant Decker supposedly says it in one of his tirades. But it's just like because there's like so
Yeah.
many words there, it's
well,
just incomprehensible.
you could say fuck once in a PG.
And
Yeah.
it can't be relating to
just can't
the
be
act.
related to
I
fucking,
told my grandma and some other of my sister's friends that when I was visiting them a couple weekends ago, and they were surprised. They're like, "Oh, you can like they have a limit on how many times you can say the F word in a movie." I'm like,
in a PG-13 movie, yes.
"Yeah." I'm like, "Yeah, they do." Like,
Did you forget to mention that the PG? I feel like you explained it wrong.
I just said, "Yeah." We were talking because my grandma will get upset about like swear words just being just flippantly used in
She
movies.
would not like me.
No. But so I was explaining to her, I'm like, it's probably because of the fact that it's a radar movie, they can just use them. Whereas if it's a PG-13 movie, they only get one. Mm-hmm. That's how I explained it to her. And they're like, oh, you can only have they put a limit on how many times you can use certain words. I'm like, just the F word, just one time in PG-13 movies.
Yeah, which is like weird.
Yeah.
It is weird because it's the same, even though it's like it's only once and it can't be related to the act, but it's like you realize it's still the same word, right?
It
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense.
You could say like "fuck you" in a PG-13 movie and it's fine, but if you say something "I want to fuck you," then it's R, and it's
Yeah.
like that's weird.
yeah.
You know,
But I
'Cause
mean, the whole motion picture rating system
it's
is
very strange. There's
fucking-
a whole documentary about it.
Yeah, that's a really good documentary.
I have seen parts of it, and it is.
Mm-hmm.
This film is not yet rated. Is that what it
Yeah.
is. Yeah, it's very strange. It's all just like women with school-age children, essentially.
Yeah, it's like it's
Yeah.
very strange.
That's the last group of people you want making decisions for you.
Wasn't it Jurassic Park that made the PG-13 rating?
It was.
It was a Spielberg movie, though,
It was
wasn't it?
Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
That's right.
Was the one that really pushed it over the edge, and even Spielberg was like, "We made this film kind of violent. Maybe there should be like a PG-12." Is what
Yeah.
he originally said.
Yeah.
And then I think Dreamscape. I think it was those two, Temple of Doom and Dreamscape, that kind of were like the 1-2 punch, where they realized, yeah, we need
Yeah.
something between PG and R, because like Psycho rated G, Jaws PG.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just it
That's
is
interesting.
like you do need something in between those
Yeah.
two.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny speaking of ratings because when Sarah was watching this, Sarah also really loved it. By the way, she really enjoyed watching it, which I was glad because I was gonna dump her if she
was
didn't like this film. This
test.
movie was really important to me. But she really enjoyed it. But there was a point when she was like, "What is this film rated?" And I was like, "PG-13."
Yeah.
She's like, "You saw this in theaters?" I was like, "Huh."
Yeah, it was also very hypersexualized, I feel like, in some points.
But it was supposed
was,
to.
Yeah.
but as a
Yeah.
joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel
like
like
all of the cops in the lycra suits
Yeah.
are just
Well,
like that's so
I
fun.
love the bit where they're at the Blockbuster and she's like, she's way too hot to be working at a video store.
Yeah.
He's like, where are the normal looking women?
It's like
Yeah.
no, it's like this is a movie. It's like no, this is California.
This is California. I love that bit.
It was just,
It's so good.
but there is that bit where Whiskers does like Goose,
Yeah.
the lady officer that he's.
I like that you
with.
say goose.
Yeah, and well, I don't know
Like
what
you're
else
in
you
the
call that.
fucking fondle, grope,
Yeah,
harass.
But Sarah was like, "Oh no, that's not. That's you know,
That's not PC.
no." But it's this. I love this movie so much. Like
It's-
F. Mary Abraham, and there's like he
Yeah.
killed Mozart.
Yeah,
It's
no,
like who's Mozart?
They keep alluding to, they keep calling to that, and it's just
Yeah, and then it
It's
happens.
so good.
Which is and it's so great because there are actors that always get cast as like the double crosser. So then
Yeah.
when it happens in the movie, you're like, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
You know, because
Yeah.
you always double cross people in movies. You know, and then like the joke, like the running joke about his bad driving, how there's like constantly accidents behind
Yeah.
him as
Yeah.
he's driving. So Charles Dance in this film
Yes.
steals the show in my opinion. I mean,
He's great.
He's got such legit villain cred
Oh,
that
yeah.
like that bit when he gets to New York, which by
Yeah.
the way, this is how, even though I've been to New York, this is how I still imagine New York, is how it's in this
Yeah.
movie, and it's like
Yeah.
rainy and dark and kind of like scary because this
Yeah.
was like high crime New York.
Yeah.
Yeah, it also reminds me of Jason Takes Manhattan, the way New York looks in that.
yeah.
It's very like dirty and gross.
Yeah. And it was like that for a long time.
Yeah.
But that bit where he says, hello, I wonder if you could help me test a theory. And then like blows the dude away.
I just shot a man.
And I wish to confess.
And fun fact, and during that scene when he's like yelling to confess, there's a guy walking around in the background holding a pair of stolen shoes.
Oh yeah, well that's from earlier, where he sees that guy get shot, and he's like, take his shoes, which is
he's
just,
like, in this world, the bad guys can win.
And I always loved that.
Yeah, I was like, I did like that beat when that part of the movie, like saying when it comes out, it gets pretty.
It gets real. It gets kind of more serious.
Yeah.
It does. Well, it takes on more. Yeah, it takes on more serious tone, but also the ideas that they're talking about. They're pretty weighty ideas.
Yeah.
Like just the existential crisis that Jack Slater has. The critique of how, even though like we just saw a bunch of violence and shit in the movie world, how much darker it is in our real world.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And how just like. Because he's like, in this world, we could, like, bad guys fucking win. Like,
Yeah.
And I also thought, and this is something that I hadn't really thought about until watching it this time around. You're going to prepare for Johnny's eye roll.
Prepare for some groans.
So Benedict, as smart as he is, the fact that he figures out how to move, like he figures out the ticket, he figures out how to then like to use it to his advantage, right? By bringing the Ripper out of Slater 3. It all reminds me a lot of an episode of Star Trek called Elementary, Dear Data. Which is actually
Johnny's high calf eye rolling.
I know, it is. It's there. Activate eye roll. And in that episode, what happens, it was actually written by an old teacher of mine.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's a great episode. It sets like pretty much all of the rules for the holodeck in the Next Generation. What happens is Data and Geordi go into a Sherlock Holmes story.
I think I've seen. Well, I haven't seen it, but I've flipped through the channels and seen, because I was like, what is this robot doing wearing the Sherlock Holmes fucking...
Yeah. That's that episode.
Yeah. I've squirreled past that episode.
So, but what happens is they're in their Sherlock Holmes story, and before they've even been there for a few minutes, Data's already solved the mystery because he's read all of the Sherlock Holmes short stories and novels. So so what Geordi does is he asks the computer to come up with an original Holmes type story with a character that can beat Data. That's all he says, and the computer obliges and creates a Moriarty that is smart enough to realize that he's a hologram, and starts and figures out a way to essentially try to take over the ship, because he realizes he's a hologram, he realizes he's on a starship, and he tries to take over the Enterprise, and he gets really close, and it's like real danger on the holodeck. And so that's kind of what this reminded me of. When
that's also a bit in Futurama.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, where it's like evil Abe Lincoln, because they just come out of it, because they have like a holodeck thing too, and it's a joke. And I'm pretty sure it's Moriarty too.
Oh yeah,
they have a cartoon Moriarty.
It's always Moriarty, Professor Moriarty, the Napoleon of crime. That's his deal.
Is that his bit?
Yeah.
But Benedict. A couple things that, not that I didn't like, but there's one thing that I kind of didn't like, but I'm like okay with it. You talked about Ian McKellen. Everything with him seems pointless.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's cool.
Yeah.
It's cool because it's like it's Ingmar Bergman and Seven Seal and like that.
Death, but he actually is Death. Apparently, because like he pats that cop on the shoulder
and he like dies.
Yeah.
But I felt like this movie had too many endings. It was kind of like the Lord of the Rings situation.
Yeah, that might have been where I was starting to get a little bored, because I was like, oh, is this gonna be? It's over now. And then I was like, oh no, it's not. There's still more shit to do.
Yeah, so there's like the ending with the Ripper, the ending with Benedict, and then the ending with Death.
Yeah.
So it kind of felt like you didn't really need it.
Yeah.
Plus, he doesn't like do anything besides kill that cop,
and give him the idea for the other end of the ticket, the other side of the ticket, which maybe Danny could have figured out.
Well, I mean, that's something that I thought about even before.
So did Sarah. Sarah called it before it happened. Yeah.
And then you get the pan like at the when they're going into the theater, and you get the pan, and it like kind of stops.
It does. It totally stops.
And then you're just like, oh, well, yeah, it's like right there, right?
Yeah.
The other thing that I didn't like, and I would have liked to happen, this one's not as much, but like you see Benedict circling Dracula, all the horror movie villains, like that would have been really cool.
Yeah.
If he would have brought them out,
like Monster Squad type thing.
Well, like what he was talking about, where he's like, we can all have a party for Rosemary's Baby. Hannibal Lecter can do the catering, and it's just like,
and that would have been cool to see, just because this movie's already like at the end is already so meta, and it's so like I imagine that's obviously like rights couldn't and all that
Right.
shit.
Well,
But-
back in 1993, before like big mega conglomerates controlled everything, I think they probably could have, because like in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, they have Disney and Warner Brothers characters together, which I don't think could ever happen now.
Definitely
no.
not.
And
Not unless Disney bought Warner.
which they're probably gonna do at some point.
Yeah.
It's that gauntlet.
Disney's
that
gonna be our
gauntlet.
overlord.
They're gonna
It's
Disney
that
as Thanos. But
yeah, I just like that they
Yeah.
set up that idea and they didn't really like follow through with it. Like he just brings out the Ripper. You know?
I agree, and that's actually something a couple of years ago I was talking about this movie with a friend of mine, and we both really liked the film, but we both realized that they probably at the expense of spending too much time in the movie universe, that we didn't either go to other movie universes and that we didn't see other movie universes come out. Like it was kind of an almost underrealized potential.
it was like I'm sure I have to believe that in some version of the script that they probably had that, and then budgetary or whatever, whatever reasons, like
because it maybe would have made the movie. There's a lot going on in the
there
movie
is a
already,
lot, and it is long, so it definitely would have
Yeah.
added more, and it would have been more loose ends to tie up, and it's just like okay.
And I know they could have and probably should have taken sort of simplified the Jack Slater 4 movie story, but it's like I love Leo the Fart and I love all that.
Yeah, I'm
I did
thinking
love
about
that
it
bit.
now. I'm like, yeah, I feel like, I mean, that's like the story of the Jack Slater 4 movie, but I'm like, honestly, did we really need it? Is it really crucial to the plot of everything overall? I mean, it establishes Benedict as this really bad guy and how much he hates his boss for making him do this. But I'm like, that whole adventure, I'm just like, I think that's where I started being like,
I mean, maybe because it keeps like dragging.
it keeps
on, right?
going on and on, and it's like that's like the first time it was like, oh, this is ending. But then there's still, I was like, oh, okay, this is where it's ending. But then there's like the loose end of the ticket and him getting back, and then they get back. I'm like, okay, so it's kind of getting over. He's gonna stay there or something like that. And then it goes to the movie theater and the premiere, and I'm just like, oh my god.
Yeah.
But I
So
mean, I really
much.
like the stuff at the end. And like, you're both right in that it spends too much time in the movie world, kind of repeating like jokes of how action movies go, and like
like when he's like, "Oh shit, I'm the comedy sidekick."
Yeah.
And it's like you're gonna teach me how to be brave, and I'm gonna teach you how to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Which was, because I kept thinking about that scene, and like, you've seen Iron Man 3 or have you not seen it yet? Okay.
I've seen
You've
it. Yeah, I
finally
watched
seen
it all.
Yeah.
I own
I
it
love
now.
Iron Man
Well,
3.
and I love Iron Man 3, but there's that, I remember when I saw that, I was like, oh, they're not gonna stick him with this kid for the whole movie. That would be stupid. And then they don't.
Yeah.
And it's like in other movies, the kid ends up being with the hero for the whole thing, and it's like, aside from that being radically dangerous, that it's also irresponsible. And so in this movie, Iron Man 3 doesn't do that. Also Shane Black.
I mean, and it wasn't until like I forgot that it was Shane Black, because you had told me, and I was like, this is like such a well put together movie, and then it was like Shane Black, and I was like, oh
Yeah, and John McTiernan. That's the other part of that, because he knows action.
he does. I love Die Hard. That's like my favorite Christmas movie, Amy.
It's not a Christmas movie.
I know, we've had this discussion. It's got Christmas themed packaging. It's a fucking Christmas movie.
I'm still pissed I did not get that Christmas theme packaging. Going back to Benedict again, when he's like figuring out like the thing, and he like has his hand like halfway through the wall, and then you just hear
The Outer Limits. You hear the first
Outer
time
Limits,
he does it, it's the
Oh,
Outer
is it?
Limits.
Yeah.
Oh, because I just remember hearing Rod Serling in The Twilight Zone.
We said Outer Limits, Twilight Zone.
Is it Twilight Zone?
It's
that's
Twilight
Zone.
Zone.
Yeah.
He's like, because he like sticks it in, and you just
And
hear
you
the
hear
Twilight
the-
Zone in the beginning, and then it flips to the other side, and he goes, and you are now entering the Twilight Zone.
And then he does an entire piece to camera. He breaks
Yeah,
the
he
fourth
does.
wall.
He does.
And he talks directly to us.
I did think
Oh,
that
yeah.
was odd, but I was like, oh, that's interesting.
I thought
choice.
it was really cool, and I understood what was happening, but I don't think I fully appreciated it. That at that point, once he realizes that he is in a movie, then he knows. And that's actually one of the few times in the movie where you can see the camera crew. If you look in the reflections of the bar, you can see the Steadicam like moving with him.
Interesting.
And I don't know that that's necessarily on purpose, but it's one of the few times where you can actually see them.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But I just love when he is, and it's interesting because the way Jack, when he realizes he's a fictional character, he's despondent and depressed.
Yeah.
And when Benedict realizes it, he's like, look at all the power that I've just assumed.
Well, yeah, that shows like
I'm
their
the
types
master.
of characters.
Yeah, and he's also like, I'm the master of my own destiny. I can do whatever the hell I want.
Yeah.
You know, and that freeing, because you can see him bristling, under what's his face, Vivaldi, you know, and just, and how he's just like, he gets angrier and angrier with like all the shit that he gets wrong.
All the dumbass shit.
But you had him in front of the 8-ball before, behind the 8-ball, and then you did the 360 on me, a 180.
180. I did a 360.
If I had done a 360, I would have gone around and turned up right back where I started.
And then he's like,
trust me.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
How long the first time, well, you just now, and then the first time you watched it, Joe, or maybe the first time you watched it comprehending what was going on more so than an 8-year-old would, did it take you to realize that you were watching a movie within a movie? Because it took me...
I understood it immediately.
It took me up until he opens the door on the roof to be like, oh shit, we're watching a movie within a movie. Because I didn't know the premise of this. And I was like...
What do you mean?
Like... At the beginning, when you first are introduced to Arnold's character.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I could see. Yeah, because I knew what the plot was. I knew it was like, oh, it's this kid.
Okay.
And he likes this action hero, and then he gets in the movie, and then crazy stuff happens. So as soon as it started, I was like, okay, this is the movie that he's watching.
Okay.
Yeah. I remember when it was being advertised,
they played like trailers where it shows
the movie, and then also if you remember, if you go back and look, the opening shot of the movie is kind of, it feels like you're sitting in a theater off to one side because the screen is kind of like this, then as the car pulls up, the screen sort of assumes like a straight on perspective versus from the side.
During the opening credits part, I was kind of just like getting everything ready, and I wasn't really focused on that, so it just wasn't something that really like clicked with me. Yeah. But I kind of like the fact that I didn't know that it was a movie within a movie going into this.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of helped me like enjoy the parts that I did enjoy about this and the critiquingness of it a lot more than I probably would have if I had known.
Yeah, Sarah didn't know either, and so she was just like, oh, as we were going along.
Yeah.
It's a fun ride.
It's so much fun.
It is. I will say it is really, really fun.
And there's all of the side little jokes. Even Shane Black making fun of himself, like after the house explodes, and there's that one guy in the palm tree, and he's just like 2 days to retirement, which is, and then there's like a classic, like saxophone riff from the score of Lethal Weapon, which was also scored by Michael Kamen.
This is after Lethal Weapon, right?
Correct, yeah. Okay. Lethal Weapon, the first one was 1987.
Okay.
So I think this was even after, this was right before Lethal Weapon 3, I think. But one thing that I've always wondered, did you ever notice Danny's fingers? Like, he's got so many hangnails and like open sores on his hands.
I noticed he had like a lot of bruises and like cuts on his hands.
I always wondered what that was about.
Yeah, well...
Could it have been the encounter at the beginning with the...
But he had that when you see that when he opens the door the first time and then somebody walks past, he slams it shut and you can see the cuts on his knuckles.
Yeah,
maybe.
Like he's just like he's always picking at. And I always thought that was an interesting point.
It may be like an anxiety kind of thing, because if you look it up on, like, you just search Last Action Hero on Google, this is the plot synopsis on Google. It says, following the death of his father, young Danny Madigan, like... So it could be like an anxiety issue he has after the death of his father, which I never really got that from any of this part, unless it was like something that was said and I just didn't notice it.
His mom early on, when she's
scolding him,
being upset. She's like, "You were at the movies, like you weren't at school." And she says, "Ever since your father died, you think I wanted to be a single mom, or a widow?" And she says, like,
after the death of your father part, I think that like kind of just breezed past for me and I didn't notice it.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty. Yeah, it's pretty quick. It was just that one line.
Yeah,
they don't really bring it up again.
But yeah, I think the like I have anxiety issues and like I'm constantly picking at like my hangnails and stuff. But the scab things, that's a little. I'm like, he doesn't have any friends to beat to hang out with or like roughhouse with or whatever. Yeah. So maybe he's just like getting beat up by kids at school, and that's why he goes to the movies instead of going to school.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think he probably doesn't have any friends. I mean, Nick is his friend. Yeah. The old projectionist,
Which, according to IMDb, he should be 99 years old.
At that point?
Because at the very end, he's talking about going to see like like somebody's first show, and they were like did the math, and like if that's true, then he would be 99 years old.
No, because here's the thing. He says that Harry Houdini, he got to meet Harry Houdini's dad took him backstage to meet Harry Houdini. He got the ticket from him. Harry Houdini died in 1926. So let's say conservatively that he saw him like
another story like that.
Yes, okay. Here's the actual thing.
Somebody.
Yeah. In the closing act, Nick begins to tell Danny about the time he saw a Buffalo Bill Wild West show as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Assuming he saw one of Bill's last shows, it would make him about 90 years old.
Wow, interesting.
And fun fact, this was actually Art Carney's last role.
Mm-hmm.
And
Who was Art Carney?
He was
Nick.
No. He was the favorite second cousin.
Oh, yeah. See.
Okay. That's what it is.
Yeah, never mind. I got the two of those mixed
and
up.
listener Art Carney from Honeymooners, in case you are not a fan of the old Kinescope comedy shows.
His last words were, "I'm out of here," and they were the last words he actually spoke on screen, ever.
Wow. I did love that bit when he says, like, that's like such a tough ass way to go. I'm out of here.
But I do love that he's just his favorite second cousin.
Yeah, and they keep saying
well, that is a very like action movie
big
thing
mistake.
too.
Yeah.
Mistake.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's just because it's always like, his daughter.
Yeah.
His brother, his fiance, is his favorite second cousin.
Yeah. Because they've already killed everybody else.
Yeah.
They killed his son, and he's divorced now. So.
I do have a couple more fun facts and some recastings, unless we want to keep talking about the movie.
Let me just say there's a couple other things. Sarah had a real problem with Danny's mom not immediately leaving work to get him at the police station.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, I think I get it because honestly, like single working mom, and especially if she's like a waitress, that's maybe the best job she can get. Maybe
tips.
the manager says no, you can't leave.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I could see it, but Sarah was like, no, you leave and you get another job if they fire you. But that scene where they get robbed is scary. Like that dude is
it is genuinely terrifying.
I thought that was gonna be like, because I was like, what? I thought it was gonna be like, what's his imagination? Because I didn't know the plot again. I was like, is this gonna be something that he's like imagining? Because they kind of instilled that within you when he's watching the like Laurence Olivier movie.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, so he's gonna imagine getting robbed and then imagine himself as Arnold Schwarzenegger's character and being the hero.
Yeah. And then and then instead it goes exactly the way it would in real life.
Yeah. And then he has and then they bring it back around when he has the handcuff key in his pocket when Practice changed them up.
Yeah. But you can see how like full of shame he is.
Yeah.
And which is it's I mean it's ridiculous. You should never try to.
Yeah, but he wants to be Jack Slater.
He desperately wants to, and just how like mean that guy was. Like it just felt real, and it's and that was something as a kid who was left home alone a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That scared the hell out of me.
Yeah.
And his building is terrifying.
Super scary. It's it's
and
just,
that's when she's like, lock the bolt as soon as I close the door.
When you see that big door jam
Yeah.
as well on the door, which was, I mean, again, this is New York in the early 90s.
Yeah.
It was like this. It was really bad. I will also say that this movie, how they depicted the La Brea Tar Pits was how I always imagined the La Brea Tar Pits until I actually visited them. Even though it's clearly right next to the Long Beach Aquarium.
Yeah.
And they even say they're in Long Beach, but then all of a sudden La Brea Tar Pits. And I just thought that was kind of funny.
I've driven past them, but I've never been in them.
They're actually really cool.
And the last time I drove past them, they were like under construction. They had boards up around them.
Yeah.
So I've never actually seen the tar pits.
You should go. It's really cool.
I mean, I've been wanting to.
And
I love like
I've actually never
natural
gone
history.
here. Lived here my whole life.
It's cool, and there's also like bits just around the park where tar is bubbling up from the ground. Mm-hmm. It's pretty neat.
Cool.
I also love that bit in the tar pits where he's like, he comes out and he's like wipes his face. He's like,
Yeah.
tar usually sticks to most
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, and he's like just with the like a few paper towels, he's almost
he's
totally clean.
I
It's so good.
did love that bubble.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh please, just like burst and cover everything in tar except for Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
And you just see like Danny walking away, just like
comedy sidekick. All right, I mean that's it. The only other thing I was just that I love that old lady school teacher at the beginning who's like trying to make Hamlet cool for the kids, and you could see her enthusiasm slowly waning
as they just like not even paying
Yeah,
attention.
and she's like, and you may know him from these commercials.
Yeah, from the Laurence Olivier from these
I love the
commercials.
fact that he just like sneaks in and she doesn't say anything about it either.
Yeah, she doesn't care. All right, so Amy, fun facts.
Okay, so one fun fact that I think Joe, like you may like, it's a technical fun fact. Due to the delays with Hook, this was the first movie released in SDDS, which is Sony Dynamic Digital Sound.
Interesting. Yeah, well, there was a lot of advances in the early 90s with theaters. I think
Like
Batman,
digital audio.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think like Batman Returns was the first 5.1 movie ever.
Speaking of Sony stuff, I'm pretty sure he's got in his like car what he's like listening to is
Oh, it was a Sony mini disc player.
It's a mini disc player.
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Which is funny because I think of mini disc players like as an early 2000s thing,
too.
but I know that they
Mm-hmm.
started development in Japan in the early 90s.
Yeah.
So the fact that he has one is just fucking weird.
Yeah.
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 But I did catch that. I was like, is that a mini disc player?
I noticed that too on rewatch, and I was like, oh shit.
That's funny.
And then filming continued until a week before this movie debuted in theaters.
That's known as delivering the film wet.
Wow. That sounds sexual.
It does.
Yeah, it does.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
They
can't
must have
even
been
imagine
rewriting
that.
like right up until the end.
Yeah. Well, they only had one audience like test screening that it was 2 hours and 20 minutes, and it was like boring the audiences, but they didn't want to delay the release, so
Yeah.
they just like, I don't remember exactly what it said. I didn't keep it, but yeah, they didn't want to like push back the release or anything.
It's nuts.
So Amy, you also said that you had some alternative castings.
Well, I do have one more fun fact that
Okay.
it's not necessarily a fun fact. It's just like, okay, that's a dumb fact that's like super obvious. This movie contains several intentional continuity errors.
What?
Yeah, like, wow. Like, I wonder how many people were like, that's a really interesting fact. I found that very helpful.
Yeah, like the tar bit. You know?
Yeah. So, some random cameos that got cut. Tori Spelling and Tony Curtis have Tori Spelling had a cameo, but it got cut, and then Tony Curtis was cast in a major cameo, but it was replaced. They didn't say by who.
Not Tony Curtis.
Man,
I have a couple
Everyone's
director
favorite.
recastings.
really?
Yes, Spielberg and Zemeckis.
Shit.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Zemeckis, in a way, kind of makes sense because there's some
live
really
action.
specific visual effects stuff, like the animated cat and Schwarzenegger sharing screen time, which looks really good.
It
like,
does.
Yeah,
super
it did look
seamless.
really good.
Yeah, and he played it well. Sarah and I were talking about that, where it's like Schwarzenegger maybe isn't a great actor, but he's so open to the camera, and he's got like a presence to him that it carries through whatever he's doing, and works like and cause, like to the point where he's natural.
Yeah.
on camera.
He isn't at, I mean, yeah, he's not like, he doesn't have a lot of range.
No.
But he is, there's some people that you're just like, oh, you're just a natural on camera presence.
Yeah.
You know?
And like even the bit like the emotional bits, you feel it.
Oh,
You
yeah.
believe it. And I think that's like a real strength that he has. And then the comedic timings. Like when he's got Leo the fart on his back, he goes, "Look, an elephant."
Yeah.
It's just
I did love that Leo the Far bit.
yeah, that was so good. And did you notice that when they started the bomb, he like pulls his finger?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going back, like there's this one. It's a very topical comment I'm going to make right now, but there is a moment. I think it's when they're at his ex-wife's house. He takes a shotgun to his chest and he just like falls back.
Yeah.
And I wrote my notes here. I'm like, Arnold takes a shotgun to the chest like he takes a drop kick to the back.
Oh.
That's good.
And then I have a couple recastings for Benedict, and these are the ones, Joe, that I told you not to read.
Which I didn't. I was good.
So I'm gonna go from bottom to top.
I can't imagine anybody else playing Benedict.
Well, just wait.
Yeah.
Just wait.
All right.
So William Atherton
Oh.
was originally intended for
He
the
would
role.
have been terrible. I mean, I love William Atherton.
He played
was
the
Peck
antagonistic journalist in Die Hard.
and he was Peck in Ghostbusters. He would have been more like a Weasley Benedict
okay.
if it had been him.
And then next, this is the one that made me kind of sad because I'd be like, I would kind of want to see this. Alan Rickman turned down the role.
Oh, Rickman would have been good.
Wow. That would have been fucking great.
Yeah, it would have.
It would have been Die Hard. And
Yeah.
I would have been like, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And then this is the one that I really didn't want you to read.
Richard Donner.
No, Charles Dance was replaced by Timothy Dalton.
Whoa.
So we would have had 2 Timothy Dalton movies in a row, Joe, if this would have happened.
Timothy Dalton would have been interesting. Because the thing is like, for whatever reason, Charles Dance, like, all of the tattoos on him, you know, kind of, like, he feels like a guy that had a really rough past and just comes across as super straight-laced. Whereas I think Dalton...
He would have been, like, really prim and proper and very much his Rocketeer bad guy.
And Hot Fuzz.
I haven't seen Hot Fuzz.
Hot Fuzz is so good.
So good. Such a good movie.
But I feel like Alan Rickman would have played it the same way, too. He would have definitely played it the way he played...
Hans Gruber.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. Hans, maybe. I'd be interested to see what Rickman would do with that role.
But yeah, I was like, can we go to like the alternate universe and just see Alan Rickman in this role?
I don't know. Charles Dance is good.
He was
Dance
good
is
though.
very good.
I don't know who William Atherton is, but I couldn't see Timothy Dalton or Alan Rickman in this role the way he played it, and I really enjoyed his portrayal.
But you've seen Die Hard.
Yeah.
He's the dick news reporter.
I can't remember.
And you've seen Ghostbusters?
Yeah.
He's the EPA guy who comes and threatens them.
He's the man who has no
okay.
dick.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I used that in school once. I was in trouble at the principal's office, and I was like 2nd grade, and we were going over what happened, and the principal turns to me and he says, "Is this true?" And I said, "Yes, it's true. This man has no dick," because I didn't know. I was just quoting my favorite movie, and it felt like the right time to do it. I got in so much
That's
trouble.
so fucking funny.
I was 7 years old, and I'm like, "Yes, it's true. This man has no dick."
Oh my god.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Okay, so does it hold up?
Hell yeah.
I mean, for the first time saying, I fucking love this movie. This is definitely one of my new favorites.
Yeah.
It blew me away. Like, I didn't expect it to be as good. I'd heard, a lot of people talk about it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people seem to love it. And I know it's like a cult favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I fucking love it.
So I say it holds up, but
it's not for you.
it's not for me.
Yeah, that's fair.
That is
Yeah.
Yeah.
I repeat, I feel about this the way Johnny felt about the Goonies.
fair. Yeah. I have no intention of watching the Goonies again.
Yeah.
You're both wrong.
You can send your hate mail to Amy Gossman at amygossman.com.
Great transition. You can send it to nostalgiaeffectpod@gmail.com.
Yeah, and then Amy will read it there.
Yeah. Or on Twitter or Instagram at nostalgitis, nostalgitis.
Spelling.
Thank you guys for listening. Don't forget to be kind and rewind.
And we'll be back.
Yay.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Bye, guys.
It's like, you're always back. You always say that.